This week is Remembrance Sunday in our villages, and there'll be remembrance services. And in a rural context, remembrance can be a slightly different way of doing things and can be a bit more closer and connected for people. So one of the places where we lived, we were involved in the Cub Scouts, and we would take our Cub Scouts down to Remembrance Parade, and at that place they read the names of the people on the war memorial as part of the ceremony. So people would read this list of names and it would be almost the same as our Cub register. And that made it really poignant because it just emphasised the connectedness of our children, their families, and those people who had gone and fought in a war, which at that point might have been quite a long time ago. Now, some of them were directly related to the people whose names were on the war memorial, some families which had stayed in the area or gone away and come back. So it might be my great uncle so-and-so, but even just the similarity of the names was quite touching for people, that it was someone who they might be related to, a distant cousin, whose name was read out at the memorial. But also some of the people whose names were read out were people who would be doing similar jobs to some of the jobs that people were doing now, particularly if they were agricultural jobs, if they were caring for animals or working in the fields or working in orchards, then they would be similar jobs to some of the jobs which people were still doing. So in a rural setting where you do remembrance, you have a stronger sense of continuity than in some other places. People understand how they're connected to those people who died and are remembered on the war memorial. They remember that there is a continuity between those people and between the people who are standing around in that place, remembering at the war memorial at that time. It's Remembrance Sunday this week, and this week we are thinking about those who have died in armed conflict, those whom we knew and those whom we didn't have the privilege of knowing. The Bible reading that we're reading is from Romans 8, verses 31 to the end, where God's love is talked about, how we can't be separated from God's love. And really in our services we're going to be thinking about connectedness, how we are all connected to each other. And we're in our services, we're going to have John Donne's poem, No Man is an Island. We're going to have a letter from a lady to her fiancé who's in the First World War, and we're going to have a poem written about a local place, quite a famous poem for us. And these are important things to think about, how we're connected to each other. And the letter in particular from the lady Emily talks about very ordinary things, and in particular it talks about how bad her chilblains are and how she is concerned about her chilblains and they're bothering her, but also she's worried about her fiancé and about how his hands and everything's coping in the harsh conditions in which he finds himself while he's at war. Recently I was in an exhibition where it was talking about how historically one group of people were trying to perpetrate an armed conflict against another group of people, and they were trying to convince one group of people that they had nothing in common with the other group of people. And whilst we might think, well, that isn't true, but it's a really good way. If you want to make one group of people hate another group of people, trying to convince them they have nothing in common is the way to go about it. But when we think about it, we kind of know that it's not true, because we are all connected to each other. On Remembrance Sunday, we remember those who have died in armed conflict, those who have died who we never got the chance to know. Some of them, they might be for some people it's even their fathers that they never knew, or it might be their uncles or cousins, people who they didn't get the chance to know because they were lost in the conflict. And we remember those people with gratitude and respect and with love, and we are all diminished by their loss, because these are the people who didn't grow old, who didn't grow old alongside us. And some of these people, that was a long time ago, and some of those people, it was very recent, that these are people who did not grow up alongside their friends and their family. And so we remember that, and we feel their loss. We feel their loss to us because we know and we remember that we are connected to them. The Romans passage talks about all sorts of things that we might think could separate us from God's love. Peril and famine and sword, war, and even death. But the Romans passage reassures us that we are not separated from God by those things. And so it's important for us to remember that whilst we might feel disconnected from those people who we love and see no longer, that they have always been connected into God's love. And we are connected into God's love. And God's promise is that He will bring us all home into that love, that we are all connected to God through His love and to each other. The Dibley moment for the week this week is something which happened to me in the summer. I went to visit some friends' parents who'd moved to a village where I hadn't been to see them for years and years and years. But also in that village I knew that some of my relatives used to live many years ago. So I was speaking to these people and saying, well, I am going to go into the churchyard and see if any of my relatives are there after all this time. And they said to me, oh, well, our next door neighbour has that surname, so you're probably related to our next door neighbour. And I probably am. So just a very simple illustration of what happens in the countryside. You know, I went to visit my friends who I'd not seen for a long, long time. It turns out I'm probably related to their next door neighbour after all. That's it for the Dibley Diaries for this week. I pray that you and your village, however large or small, have a really blessed and peaceful week.